So the lawyer saw him on April 12th, which is 10 days ago. And he reported that my father was assaulted 3 different times only in the prior 3 weeks that he saw him in. March 24th, in Majiddo prison, where he was in solitary confinement, they put him on the ground and they had a dog come and to start kicking him with his paws. The second day, he was moved from Majiddo to Ganout prison, and on the way, they assaulted him again. And then on April 8th, they assaulted him inside Ganout prison, which caused him, to bleed for 2 hours, asking for medical treatment, and he didn't get any. And it's worth mentioning that we have 10 different assault cases against my father only in the 2.5 years past.
When did you last see him, and how are you managing to get information out of prison?
The only way to get information is through the lawyer. I haven't been able to see him in 4 years. My mother was the last one out of the family to see him, which is a little bit more than 3.5 years ago. And unfortunately, this comes into under the context of the whole of the collective punishment policy of the Israeli government against the Palestinian detainees. And you're talking about almost 10,000 Palestinian detainees that haven't been able to see their family and loved ones since October 7th.
Yeah, and I think we can see pictures there of Arab and your brother with your father there. Now, about a year ago, a video went viral of the National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, the Israeli National Security Minister, taunting your father in prison. Let's take a look at the video.
אתם לא תנצחו אותנו. מי שיתעסק עם עם ישראל, מי שירצח לנו ילדים, מי שירצח לנו נשים, אנחנו נמחק אותו. אתם צריכים לדעת את זה לאורך כל ההיסטוריה.
What was your reaction to seeing that?
I mean, shocked and appalled. At the end of the day, he's a public figure, of course, but I'm his son. I haven't been able to hug my father in 24 years. I haven't been able to see him in years, and seeing him being taunted, threatened, abused by no one other than the fascist Ben-Gvir is something heavy to take on. And for the life of me, I have no idea what the Western governments and Western leaders are waiting for. Here is a man who's calling for the two-state solution, calling for peace, calling for coexistence, getting humiliated in front of the whole world, while someone who's calling for the death of Palestinians, death of the idea of Palestinian state is getting nothing, no consequences.
Now, relating to that video, which of course went viral, just to say the Israeli prison service denied allegations of abuse and mistreatment. They rejected claims the footage reflected unlawful conduct. That's what they say. But obviously, Israel does see your father as a convicted criminal. He was found guilty of multiple terrorism-related offenses, 5 counts of murder, none directly by him, but he was accused of authorizing and directing attacks. But interestingly, in various prisoner swaps, Israel has released Palestinian leaders who were convicted of similar things, but never your father, though there are reports of there being pressure for your father to be released. Why do you think they are reluctant to release him?
Because of the very fact that he believes in coexistence and the two-state solution and political settlement. But I need to go back because you said convicted. We need to say convicted by whom? By the Israeli court. That I don't believe in. We don't recognize. My father didn't recognize the court or its
Some international bodies did say part of the trial was flawed, although it's fair to say that none of them declared he was innocent. They said the trial was flawed.
Because they were not allowed to go in depth. He didn't have a defense because he didn't agree to the jurisdiction of the Israeli government of putting someone like him, a parliament member, a Palestinian leader, in prison in the first place. And this is a very important point that doesn't get talked about in the media. When I speak to Western media, unfortunately, they make it as a given, as if he's convicted by,
in fairness, from the start, though, he had a lot of support, including from Nelson Mandela and many other figures, more recently as well. So there's always been support for him. I suppose the point I'd like to make is the Israelis obviously are reluctant to release him. You mentioned because he believes in a two-state solution. A lot of people point to him as the man who can unify the Palestinian cause, Fatah, Hamas, various other groups. Do you agree with that? And if so, why? Why do you think he would be the man that would be able to do that?
Because it's more than slogans. He's not just a unifying figure. We're not saying that as a slogan. He did take action on the ground. If you go back to the prisoners' document, which is the most significant Palestinian document because it was signed by all Palestinian factions, and it's the only document that was signed by all Palestinian factions until today. And it stated a clear roadmap towards a political vision that all Palestinians can agree on, and all Palestinian factions signed on that. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can build on that, which stated that resistance should be limited to within the 67 borders, because my father has always been very consistent that he bases all his work on international law as someone who supports international law.